Hi everyone, this is going to be a lesson on composition. It's mainly for people who are struggling to get going. Maybe they're thinking that they can't come up with any good ideas, any good musical material. But it is also really useful for people who are well on their way with their compositions, but should look at this to think about how they're developing their material. Are they developing their musical ideas or motifs? So to show you how accessible composition is, I have created the makings of a piece that have this idea. Right, that's it. Or ABC. That's it. I'll do it in treble clef, make it a bit easier. So, 1, 2, 3. That should jump out as too simple, bit boring, bit unimaginative, and you'd be right. So we can do a couple of things to make it a bit more interesting. One thing you can do is add more notes. There are only 3 notes at the moment, so if you look at bars 2 and 3, I've just repeated the first note 3 times. Well, I've played it 3 times. And the other thing is to give it a rhythmic component. So at the moment it's 3 crotchets. Not very interesting. But then we have coming in on the second beat, so it's 1, 2, 3, 1 and 2, 3. Okay? And it's really good to get into the habit of using that rhythmic lyrics, I guess, the 1 and 2, 1 and 2, 3. Because when I'm trying to compose an idea, and if I have an idea in my head, if I think about it 2, 3, 1 and 2, 3, then as soon as I say something like 1 and, I know I'm quaver quaver. If I just say 1, 2, 3, I know I'm just doing crotchets. So it's a good way to improve your ability to write down what is in your head, because often it's the rhythmic component that's difficult. So we have this idea, it's gone from into a, so a bit more interesting, a couple more notes, and then we think, what can we do from there? So some of these compositional devices, hopefully when you hear this, your brain might say, hey, do it again, up 1, right? And we can do that indefinitely. But you'll notice if I just keep doing it, it just becomes extremely monotonous, boring, repetitive, that kind of thing. So typically you wouldn't want to do it more than 4 times. So if we do it 4 times, it would sound like this. Right? So that's probably as far as I'd want to do it, but often I like to do a 3 and 1. So I'll repeat something 3 times and vary it on the 4th. This doesn't have to be 3 in a row, then the 4th is the varied. You might go 2, provide the variation on the 3rd, and then repeat the original on the 4th. So an example of 3 and 1 might be, right? So with this, all I've changed is going from stepwise 1, 2, 3, and then instead of going D, E, F, I just go down to the B. So I still end up in the same place on the F, but I've turned a stepwise into thirds, and this creates the B diminished chord. So that it still kept the same rhythm, so it provides that continuity, but it's changed the intervals. We could call that intervallic manipulation, or just manipulating the intervals. Good example of that would be if we have Beethoven going, it's a 3rd, and then it goes a 2nd on the next one. He doesn't just go, he doesn't just do thirds because it doesn't sound right. So you change the intervals to suit the ear. So we end up with a B diminished. That's a kind of not an ideal note to leave on. So I might do something like, so I just add that one extra note on the end, and we could call that continuation or extension. Extension's a good one to use where you have the same idea and then you're just adding a little bit more, and that's the key idea I want to get across. We want to kind of hold back as much as we can and get the maximum value out of that material, and then when you feel like you're listening to it, it's becoming too repetitive, or I just need something else, that's when you kind of want to give it to them. If you just go, here are all the chords, here's all the material, and you just jump from one idea to the next, then it all becomes meaningless. When you kind of hold things back and get as much value out of that idea as possible, and then kind of gradually extend, not only will it be much easier to compose a piece because you get so much more time out of any idea, but you're also going to get better marks for developing the idea, and it also creates a really satisfying progression of the piece. So an example of that, we can see when I add the harmony. So as well as manipulating the melody to add variety and better sound, we'd want to use some harmony, obviously. So here we start with ABC, right? It's a minor third on A minor, so it makes sense that we use A minor as the first chord. Then it goes, right? So we have a B minor third, so we could go to that diminished chord, but maybe not. We could do a B minor chord, but that F sharp kind of comes out of nowhere. So we could put the third on the bottom, and then we end up with a G chord. So we'll see how that sounds. Lovely. And all I'm doing there is going, what notes do I have? Okay, is there a chord with those two notes in it? Yep, there's A minor, and there's, sorry, F major. And then we go to the next one. Right, so I could go B minor, B diminished, G. And at the moment, I'm just looking to use chords that fit the notes I'm playing. So I'm not having any kind of suspensions or anything at the moment. I'm not doing like a sus chord or anything like that. I'm just going, hey, I've got a C and an E, it's playing A minor. So I'll play through the piece and, well, the first part of it. And you'll notice that all I'm doing is going A minor to G to A minor to G. So I'm deliberately holding back the harmony. I'm not going to a third chord, then a fourth chord, and the fifth chord. I'm just going, I'm going to sit in these two chords until I need to go somewhere else. So we'll see what it sounds like. So going through twice is probably as much as you can get away with. If I tried to do it a third time, you'd be like, all right, this is boring. So we'd want to maybe add something else. We want to get to the point where, like, that's as far as I can go with this idea. What can I then add? What can I develop? So remember, try to think about developing the idea, not bringing in a new one. So all I do here, and I'm deliberately doing it kind of overly simple, to see what I can get away with. So all I do now is, instead of holding over for a full 6 beats, 2 bars, I just repeat like the top note. Actually, I think this would sound better if I do a G. Okay, so all I'm doing is I'm playing a chord and then kind of playing a note, and then playing the chord, playing the top note. And all this does is, instead of having one point of harmony there and going for two bars. Now we just have a kind of point every bar, so it maybe slightly increases the harmonic rhythm, but also with the second iteration being one note, it will provide maybe a thinner texture, and so we'll see how that sounds. So I'll run it in from the one time before and just see the subtle difference that it will make. Now, see, I changed another couple of things as well. If I just did the same melody, but all right, I've heard this. I've already heard that twice. If I do it a third time and it's kind of changed nothing, that change in the left hand's probably not enough. So, as I said about going A minor to G to A minor to G, now this sets up another thing where when I have this part, I could bring in a C chord. So we're going A, G, A, G, A, and then it goes to C, so it kind of creates a bit of a major lift. And then I finally go to chord 5. Right, so it says, it's put it as an A flat, but we should know that it's E and then G sharp B, not A flat. Alright, so we go to E major. And what happens there is if I don't change the melody and I do like a on an E, right, that's ends up with an E9. It's probably a bit much. So I do the same and then I change it just to an E, 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 F sharp, E. Oh, sorry, F natural. It's a nice wee sad minor second interval there. And that just makes sure that it fits with the harmony. The next thing we can do is change the left hand more. So going from chords, we've added that one extra note, makes a nice little subtle difference. And then another thing you might do is bring it in with arpeggios. And here I've added in the slur as well, because when you've got the arpeggios, maybe you're changing it to a more legato feel, a smoother feel. So it has a point of rest every second bar. And you can play around with these bits as well. You might just kind of stay 1 3 5 1 and then 3 5 kind of thing. But here we're kind of just playing around to see what notes fit, and you know, just eliminating clashes between notes as well. I think originally up here I had you know, like A's clashing with B's or C's clashing with B's and things like that. So we'll see what we'll run it through here and see the difference that the left hand arpeggios make. And that we kind of just run up the melodic minor scale. So we have the F sharp and G sharp. F sharp and G sharp. So we're running up to there. So that can kind of lead into a modulation or key change. And so this is, you know, already quite a bit of material out of kind of changing nothing in the right hand. Really subtle changes in the right hand. so what are some other things we can do with our melody to make it more interesting? So at the moment we've got a 1, 2, 1, 2. Right, we're rising. So simplest thing we could do there is have an inversion. So instead of starting there and going up, we just start here and go down. And that might jump out as a good example of a way to finish a phrase, because we're rising, and then we could go, and we've kind of cadenced. So it might be a good way to finish a phrase. And another thing to think about is the idea of, you know, if you're doing an 8-bar phrase, the first 4 bars, you leave it on chord 5, create that imperfect cadence and kind of leave it hanging. So we've left it on chord 5, it sounds very unfinished, so that invites us to do another 4 bars. And then you might go 1, A minor, and then go to the chord 5 on 3rd, and then end up there. So inversion is a useful tool, but it also allows us to basically do the same thing but in reverse. So instead of going and working our way up, we might start on 5, right? So we now have, like, it still sounds like it fits. It's the same rhythmic pattern, it's the same effectively idea, but it's inverted, and this provides the continuity. This is an example of developing the idea. We're not trying to think of something new to come up with. We're getting maximum value out of our really simple idea of 1, 2, 3. So you can, you know, so we're just thinking about the same idea and thinking, how many ways can we repurpose it? And another thing is kind of throwing in those ideas of extension. So you know, you can kind of just run with extra notes and see how they sound and change them if they work, that kind of thing. So hopefully this is a good start for you guys to maybe get you thinking about ways to develop your ideas. Remember to think about other ways of retrograde, and repurposing harmonies as well. So, you know, you start with simple and then bring in some new chords. And try doing it with kind of different chords as well, because if we have A minor to G and we go back to A minor, we could continue that down to the F, and because that fits perfectly, and then if we go down to the F, this kind of creates this nice F major 7 chord. And then it leads it. So you can constantly do the same melody, but then use different chords as well, and just play around with it, because sometimes you accidentally hit the wrong chord and there's a note of clash, but then it resolves, or you just stumble on something that actually sounds really nice, and often you'll accidentally play 7th chords or 9th chords or something, and it actually works really well, or it doesn't work there, but you might like that sound for a different part. So hopefully that's a good place to start, and hopefully it's given you ideas to develop some material. Good luck.